I am a bitter Minnesota Viking fan who did not get Jim Harbaugh 2 years ago. Welcome back to the House of Takes, a late night show, the only show in North America that's giving the Los Angeles Chargers a grade A for its hire of Jim Harbaugh. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, every show is giving the grade A response to the hiring of Jim Harbaugh to the Los Angeles Chargers a little bit earlier in the day. That is our topic on the House of Takes, a late night show. As always, I am Dave DeBaugh coming to you live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. Now, look, this last 48 hours, quite frankly, for those people that follow the National Football League extremely closely, has been a bit of torture. It was almost like you needed to send down your own photographers to follow the every movements of Jim Harbaugh, Dean Spanos, John Spanos, and anybody else that you knew that happened to be close to people inside the Los Angeles Charger organization. Where is Jim Harbaugh this second? Jim Harbaugh just entered the bathroom. Jim Harbaugh just made his way back to his hotel. Jim Harbaugh has a meeting with the Atlanta Falcons scheduled for Wednesday. Well, that meeting's been pushed back to Thursday. Word on the streets is that Jim Harbaugh is still in Los Angeles. Finally, earlier in the day, the story that we all knew was going to break actually broke, and Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers issued a press release. They didn't actually say how many years the contract is. That was discovered an hour later. The answer to that question is it's a 5-year deal. We don't have the terms of the deal yet. But historically, the Los Angeles/San Diego Charger organization under the Dean Spanos, John Spanos regime have been historically cheap. Like this guy, Brandon Staley, was one of the lowest paid head coaches in the National Football League. Apparently, they forgot to check his references when it comes to clock management. Oh yeah, Brandon Staley, he's a good guy. He knows his X's and O's. He's really good at defense, said the reference. The question that the Spanos HR person should have asked is he good at clock management? And apparently that question was never answered during his reference checks. Look, this was a fantastic hire. I know I'm not saying anything new that everybody else is saying in the main media, as well as in the secondary media, as well as your brother and or sister and your local dry cleaner who has their own podcast. Everybody's saying that this is a grade A trade or grade A hire, I should say, for the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I want to get into a little bit about Jim Harbaugh. Now, we're not going to get into he won in college, he won in the pros, he's won everywhere he's gone. No, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is tell you one of the reasons that Jim Harbaugh actually wins regardless of where he goes. Like, how many games did he miss at the University of Michigan this year? What was it, like 6 games? And yet that team functioned as if Jim Harbaugh was there on the sidelines calling the plays. Now, who knows? Maybe Jim Harbaugh really was, for those cheater conspiracy people out there that hid in the bush to see if Jim Harbaugh was outside with a walkie-talkie calling in the plays to their offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. No, what Jim Harbaugh does well, which is what a lot of people do well in business, especially these very successful people, like the most successful leaders in business are absolutely fantastic at figuring out how to put together an organization that can function so that they can actually go on vacation. Think about it. Jim Harbaugh missed 6 games and they still won the national championship. Over the years, Jim has gotten so much better at that when it comes to building his staffs. Now, interestingly enough, a little bit earlier in the day, Vic Fangio parted ways. Maybe it was the first shot, if you will, the precursor to the larger earthquake that Vic Fangio was heading to Los Angeles to join Jim Harbaugh. No word yet on whether or not that's actually going to happen. But one thing can be said for sure when it comes to Vic Fangio, I'm sure he'll be a defensive coordinator if he wants to be somewhere in the National Football League this upcoming season. So Jim Harbaugh, what makes him such a good leader? One of the things that makes him a great leader is that he's really good at hiring coaches. He's proven it in college, he's proven it in the pros, and he'll prove it again with the Los Angeles Chargers. You just look at the staff that Jim Harbaugh puts together. Jim Harbaugh's hiring people that he knows will actually get the most out of the players that he's bringing into this team. Now, of course, every coach says that. Every coach says, I'm good at hiring. I'm really good at it. And I'm good at leadership. Look, when Mark Zuckerberg, and you got to remember, I'm here in the I've been in the I was in the Silicon Valley before Facebook was developed. And I was here when Zuckerberg moved into their offices. And I heard the stories about Zuckerberg actually just taking a cubicle just like everybody else inside the company. He wanted to show that he's just like everybody else. But what Zuckerberg really wanted to show is that he works hard and he puts in the time. He didn't need a corner office. That being said, Jim Harbaugh is very good at hiring people and then handing the reins over to those people and letting them run with it. That's why the Michigan Wolverines were able to win 6 games this past season without Jim Harbaugh there on the sidelines. Ultimately, was this a good hire for the Spanos family? Now, I swear, both Dean and John Spanos, I swear both of them are modeled after the old men from Scooby-Doo that used to say, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those darn kids. The Spanoses have been nothing but not great when it comes to leadership and when it comes to hiring head coaches. What was Bobby Ross the last good coach that this San Diego Charger team won? Show me your lightning bolt. I am just saying these Spanoses have been bad at hiring leadership. And what really good leadership is really all about is hiring other good leaders. And that is something that that Jim Harbaugh, and I almost said John, but John's good at it as well, really do time after time after time, which is why everybody is making such a big deal about this. We all know that Jim Harbaugh is going to do a great job with this Charger team. We all know that they're most likely going to be in the playoffs every season. And I think we all suspect that if anybody can actually take a Los Angeles Charger team, which is owned by the Spanoses, to the Super Bowl and actually pull off a win, it is Jim Harbaugh. There is so much that can be said about Jim Harbaugh. Look, Jim Harbaugh loves his nutrition. He'll have the players eating healthy, which, shouldn't be a big problem in Los Angeles to begin with, but he'll have them on the right diets. He'll have them on the right workouts. He won't over practice them. He'll stimulate their minds, which is one of the things that Dan Campbell does really well with the Detroit Lions. You think Dan Campbell's just some hothead? No, Dan Campbell is a lot more than that. And so is the quirky one, Jim Harbaugh. And finally, one of the big things that the Chargers are going to get, one of the big benefits of actually bringing in a Jim Harbaugh. Now, I'm sure they're paying him double, triple, if not quadruple what they paid Brandon Staley. Staley was making like $4.1 million a year. And you get what you pay for, right? You paid for a guy, you didn't pay that much for him, and he came in and he took one of the best defenses in the game and he quickly turned it into one of the worst defenses in the game. You brought in somebody with very little head coaching experience, if not any, and he struggled handling the clock. Look, clock management is even hard for the coaches that have been in the league for 25 years. Brandon Staley, as bright as he was, struggled mightily with that. But the point when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, those things aren't going to be the problem. What Jim Harbaugh is really good at, and what I think he'll do for the organization, is something called culture. I think he's going to bring a new culture to this team, assuming there's no meddling of the Spanos family that prevents him from actually doing what he wants to do. Jim Harbaugh should be successful. Like, think about it. Who's the only owner in the National Football League that actually holds his own press conferences the day after a game and also has his own weekly spot on a sports radio show? And the correct answer to that question is, of course, Jerry Jones. The owners of the National Football League teams should really only be heard of once during the football season if their team wins a AFC or NFC championship, and if they go to the Super Bowl and win and or lose the Super Bowl. That's what the owners are actually paying for. But leadership is all about allowing the people you hire to go do their job. So the Spanoses can stay out of Jim Harbaugh's way, which is something that Jed York couldn't do in San Francisco. Now, Jed York has become a lot better at that since the Harbaugh regime. And that's also one of the reasons the 49ers have been so successful. When was the last time you saw a Jed York press conference? Like, it never happens anymore. Maybe it happens during the offseason every once in a while, but that's it. You don't see Jed York after a football game holding a press conference the same way he used to do when Jim Harbaugh was the head coach of the 49ers. It doesn't happen. Look, Jim Harbaugh is going to set a whole new culture. And the hope is that the culture is actually going to drive legitimate Los Angeles. Heck, they would even take bandwagon Los Angeles, because it's Los Angeles. They would take bandwagon Los Angeles Charger fans in the stands. It is absolutely ridiculous that every single home game is actually an away game. Jim Harbaugh is probably the one coach in the land that could actually shift that mentality. All right, that is it for today's House of Takes, a late night show. Hey, listen, tell me what you think. Drop a comment in. This is also in podcast form. You can download the House of Takes pod just about anywhere. As always, for the House of Takes, a late night show, I am a bitter Minnesota Viking fan who did not get Jim Harbaugh 2 years ago. I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.